Senator Talent, how are you?
I am fine, you. These are interesting times.
I think Jim Banks, your friend and mine, was on
Yeah.
just now on Fox and Friends. I want to play a clip and get you to react to it a few times. Clip number one.
Brian, this reminds me of the ancient philosopher Mick Jagger, who said you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you get what you need. And I think in this case, we've got what we need. It's time to move on, roll up our sleeves, and get to work. There have been a lot of concessions, discussions that went late into the night last night with the holdouts and Leader McCarthy and others to give them more seats at the table on committees, change some of the rules. At this point, the rules that have been negotiated are really good to empower rank and file members and take power away from the hands of just one or two people in leadership. And that's good for the institution. It's good for the party. It's time to move forward, unify, and we've got to get back to work.
So, Jim Talent, how do you hear that? What's that mean to you?
What that means to me is that they are doing what I figured they would do, which is peel off the Chip Roy faction, gain some momentum, and then wear down those who are most irreconcilable. And the irony of all this is that when you weaken the majority leadership structurally in a legislative body, you know who you empower? You empower the minority and the people in your own party who are most likely to vote with the minority most often, which is, of course, the people that the hardliners think of as the squishes. Okay, so if you're a hardliner, what you want to do is support the leadership generally, but anticipate where you don't trust them and use carrots and sticks to get them to do what you want on those issues.
Let me play one more bit of Jim Banks for you, Jim Talent. Here's Jim Banks moments ago. Next cut, Jacob. Is it stuck?
Well, we're going to have another vote at noon, and I think you're going to see some progress. I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. So if that happens, hopefully that progress snowballs and members who are holding out feel pressure in their districts or from others to unify with the party and do the right thing and elect a speaker. So that
right there, Jim Talent, overnight Scott Perry had to read a column by Selena Zito, who was in his district, and he won with an 8% margin, comfortable. But boy, are people mad at him. Do you think the 20 understand what they're doing to their reelections?
I'm not sure, because I think they may be hearing from a group of people who want them to do this or just angry and want them to do something. But they have to understand, okay, that nobody in your base likes it when it looks like you are just bumbling around. In other words, when you do something like this and you don't get anything productive about it, because people want you to win and to be effective. So, yes, I agree with you. I think this is a lot more dangerous for them politically than it is helpful. At the same time, they're dug into this so we have to find a way for them to get out from under.
I know they need a ladder or they need a fire extinguisher, and maybe Chip Roy went in there with that in mind. Now, I start in the morning beating up on the 20. Mark Levin comes along, Dana Loesch comes along, Sean Hannity ends the night beating up on the 20. Who is the base they think they're hearing from? I mean, I define the base as have you voted for your Republican 5 times and for over a period of 10 years. How do you define the base?
Yeah, well, I think actually the base is much more united than many people in Washington think they are, because they all want basically the same thing, and you've talked about it. They want the investigations to go forward. They want a strong anti-China policy. They want a strong border policy. They want a pro-energy production policy. And these are all the things the House will do. Now, there are some issues like budgeting and omnibus. I mean, Chip Roy is not wrong to be worried about that issue. But I think weakening the leadership structurally will make it more difficult for him to get what he wants. And
I think you're right. I think they do not understand they're taking cards out of Kevin McCarthy's hands for when those negotiations happen.
Exactly right. It's just a fact that the leadership uses its power most of the time to control the people in the party who are most likely to vote with the Democrats. And that's not Chip Roy and Matt Gaetz, okay? Now, you don't like to talk. Kevin McCarthy doesn't like to talk about these things because, A, nobody's interested, and B, it looks like typical Washington stuff. But I was a leader in the 1980s in the Missouri legislature for 4 years. I was a Republican leader, and the powers that I had to use most of the time against the same set of people who are the people who are the most moderate, because the Republican agenda, as we can see, is going to be pretty conservative most of the time. So, look, I understand their anger. I do. But I said this in the column I wrote, and you were nice enough to tweet it out. They're going about it the wrong way.
Are you optimistic that this is over by Monday, or it's going to take a month? Because the McCarthy people aren't leaving, despite the legacy media. They're rock solid. They're Gibraltar Republicans.
I don't know, because the last time this happened was 1855, and I'm old, but I wasn't alive then. So
you and me both.
Sure. I think you and I have been around a while, but not that long. So I think they're going to figure this out, and I am then hopeful that everything will get organized and they'll get going, and then we'll start confronting the real challenges, which is what you do on all these issues and how you are effective in dealing with the opponents, who, let's not remember, the political opponents are actually the Democrats.
You would forget that. Follow Jim Talent at Jim Talent on Twitter. He's the real deal. He's the real base, America, by the way. He's also a reasonable guy, and we love him. Thank you, Jim. We'll be